Alabama lost last night, as I'm sure you've probably already heard. Final score was 34-24. Texas got it done on the road. Huge win for Texas. Texas is a good football team now. Want to make sure we make that very, very clear. They did not just lose to some slouch operation. Lost to a really good quarterback, really good head coach that was actually on Alabama's staff for a long time. But there is a lot of people today taking part in headline culture. They've been waiting to say it. We all knew they would say it. All waiting to say, Bama's done. Dynasty's dead. Saban's been passed by the game. The students become the master. Do we believe that? Are we buying that? If you've watched this show for a period of time, then you know it's probably not going to be something that we buy into, but we'll talk about it nonetheless. Really quickly, make sure you're subscribed right here. Alabama Faithful. We met a lot of y'all yesterday in Tuscaloosa. Absolutely phenomenal to put some faces to some usernames from the comment section and meet a lot of y'all. So awesome. We appreciate y'all tuning in. If you have not yet subscribed, we would love to have y'all right here, a part of this operation. Lock it in. Make sure you're subscribed. Live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. All right. So people saying Alabama is done. Let's clear the air here. Great win by Texas yesterday. But Texas isn't back and Alabama isn't done. You want to know why? Because it's week 2 of the college football season. It's week 2. We have 2 data points on these teams. This is the first real competition either one of these teams had to face in this season. There's good news and there's bad news. Let's start with the bad news so we can move into the good news and kind of unpack this one accordingly. The bad news is Alabama looked very un-Saban-like last night. You know what I mean? 2 costly turnovers. You probably have mixed feelings today about Jalen Milroe. The defense looked out of sorts against different shifts and against tempo. Like they just kind of looked off balance. That's not a Nick Saban trademark defense that we've come to know and expect. It's not the kind of Alabama team speed and team operation that we've seen over the history of his time in Tuscaloosa. Like, didn't look Saban-like. Just looked kind of off kilter. It's weird to explain. You probably got a feeling watching that football game in terms of what was going on. Also, it didn't feel like the more physical football team was Alabama. It didn't feel like they were the ones asserting their will. Now, in the first half, they got downhill, and we kind of saw a version of their philosophy they're starting to implement in Tuscaloosa with Tommy Rees and getting downhill with Jason McClellan. Like, looked really good. But in the second half, didn't see as much of that. And part of that was Texas scoring points and putting the pressure on them. But even so, man, like, we were told there was going to be a certain brand of football being played. And last night, it was not executed. Period, point blank, the end. Like, it was not executed the way that you expect it to be executed in Tuscaloosa when Nick Saban's your head coach. So I promise you, they feel the same way internally. They are excusing none of that, but I want us to kind of get all the bad news out there because there's still a lot of good news. The good news is this loss to Texas does not have to mean anything to Alabama. You hate losing, but in regards to what they want to accomplish, college football playoff, still on the table. SEC title, this wasn't an SEC conference game at this point in time. Still on the table. There's no barrier for Alabama to get to where they want to go, both literally and then also internally. Like the way we talk about Alabama is always graded on the Bama curve. Why? Because of the kind of players they have. That team is just made of top 2 classes. All they have is the best ingredients. It'd be one thing if Alabama lost last night and it was like, yeah, man, hey, I don't know. Just don't have the guys. Don't have the guys. Maybe you feel that way after week 2 and what we've seen from some of those individuals over the course of their career, what we've heard about guys like a Caleb Downs. Like, I'm not so sure I want to sell my stock on that Alabama secondary. Now, again, they looked out of sorts at times. There were times where they did not align correctly and they were not adjusting well to what Texas was throwing at them. Okay? But even so, man, like, I don't think you point the finger at anybody. I think you just say, hey, we all have our own share of blame here. We took our shots. They took their shots. It was how it was. Like, I don't know what you want to say. The talent is not the issue in Tuscaloosa. The execution is the issue. And when the execution is the issue, you can fix that. You can't fix talent in the middle of the season. Portal's closed. Portal is closed. You got your recruiting classes. You got your freshmen already there. Caleb Downs, true freshman. He was playing for you last night. You're not going and adding talent mid-season, but you can adjust execution. And with Nick Saban as your head coach, I have a hard time believing they are going to just sit back and let execution errors and controllable things go by the wayside. Doesn't seem like his kind of agenda. So what's next for Alabama? Well, I think my question would be to Alabama, what do you want to be next? What are you going to do? Because how do you let this whole thing affect you? How do you let this loss that was very public, that everybody watched last night, how do you respond to that? Because it was very interesting. We were on the field as this thing ended, and Malachi Moore, even as Texas is snapping the football and the clock's winding down, it becomes very evident that Alabama's about to lose this football game. Like, he is visibly frustrated. You could tell by his body language. He was like throwing his arms. Couldn't hear what he was saying, but it looked like he was yelling. Like, he was very, very visibly frustrated. Clock hits triple zeros, and Alabama obviously got off the field. Like, Malachi Moore was extremely disappointed and frustrated by what had happened. And so I think that's a great microcosm of what Alabama has in front of them now. You're frustrated. It hurts. Let it hurt. Let it sting. But now take all that hurt and that frustration and put it into the rest of your schedule. Because if you let this loss affect you to the point where you start believing things about yourself and letting this loss define you going forward, like, hey, there's a lot of ball left to be played. We don't have time for all that. And so it now falls on the internal pieces of this Alabama team, the leaders in that locker room, to say, hey, that's not what we approve. That's not anything we sign off on. That's not our brand of football. Let's go win out. Let's go get what we all want to go get when we started this entire season in spring football. Like, let's go take care of business. I think that's the approach that's now in front of Alabama because, again, everything they want to do is still in front of them. Everything they want to accomplish, they are capable of accomplishing. Again, the quarterback position, we talked about it a little bit last night, but like there's times where you probably felt like Jalen Milroe made some plays that reminded you why he's the guy. He made some plays that make you want to pull your hair out. I'm curious to see what they do going forward there. I thought Jalen Milroe made a lot of plays last night that kept you in that football game, as many as he made that were frustrating and were giving the football to the other team. Even so, though, man, the climb is steeper for Alabama now, but if you win the SEC, there is no world where an SEC champion, a one-loss SEC champion, I should say, gets left out of the college football playoff. So some of your weaknesses are on tape now, which you don't love, but you're glad it happened week 2 and not week 10. This is very much so a recoverable thing for Alabama, and I can't wait to watch how they respond. Make sure you're subscribed. Live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Want y'all here. Get in the live chat on those days. Set your watches accordingly. We'll get in here. We'll talk some ball. Be a real good time. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.